Hey guys, tonight we're drifting up above the chaos of Earth to the soft, blue hush of Mount Olympus, where even immortals sometimes get painfully bored. Picture this: Zeus, lord of the sky, king of thunder, absolute top god of the ancient Greek pantheon, is lounging on a marble throne, chin in palm, letting out a sigh big enough to send a few random mortals flying off mountaintops. There's no war today, no epic romance, no prophecies to meddle with. Even the mortals are behaving themselves well, sort of. And when you're an all-powerful deity with infinite time and no to-do list, your brain starts cooking up strange ideas. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, post your location and local time down in the comments. I always love seeing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You hear sandals clink against polished stone as Zeus paces across his high balcony, eyes scanning the sky. There's not much going on, just a couple of bored harpies chasing a stray rainbow and some wind nymphs gossiping behind a thundercloud. You can almost hear him mutter, "I should have smited something today." Instead, he lands on an idea so oddly specific, so painfully Zeus, that it must have been born from divine restlessness. A cloud-watching contest. Yes, clouds. He declares it aloud with the thunderous pride of someone announcing a global war treaty. Let the first Olympian cloud-watching contest commence. And you know what's weird? No one stops him. Not even Hera, who usually rolls her eyes at his latest whims unless they involve turning into swans or bulls. Historians still argue whether Zeus invented the game as a form of passive-aggressive punishment or if he genuinely thought it would bring the family together. Honestly, it's a toss-up. But word spreads quickly. Hermes practically turns into a divine postal service, zipping from peak to peak, delivering scrolls wrapped in wisps of vapor. Even the satyrs in the lowlands hear about it, though they think it's a drinking game involving cloud-shaped goblets. The contest, simple enough on paper. Each participant gets 1 hour to summon, shape, or interpret clouds into something aesthetically moving. Points awarded for originality, emotional impact, and overall fluffiness. You probably won't survive this if you're expecting logic. The arena, a floating marble amphitheater carved from thunderheads and hung in the upper stratosphere. It drifts above the Aegean like an accidental miracle. Harpies handle the seating. The muses are drafted to judge, though most seem more interested in passing around pomegranate cocktails and whispering insults. By the time you arrive, yes, you, because we're going second person. And your job tonight is to just observe and not get turned into a swan. You find the seats already filled with a crowd of divine misfits. Ares is there, but refuses to participate unless he can punch a cloud. Hestia has brought snacks. Aphrodite, radiant as always, is lounging on a chaise made entirely of mist, dabbing dew on her cheeks for that extra glow. Fringe theorists once claimed this contest was the reason behind a bizarre week of meteorological phenomena in ancient Greece, including a cloud shaped like a horse falling in love with a grape. Modern meteorologists have no explanation. You settle in next to a minor wind spirit named Breeza, who hands you a program made of pressed cirrus. "It's not going to make sense," she whispers. "Just clap when everyone else does." Fair enough. Zeus, of course, has the first slot. With a dramatic wave of his hand and a booming, "Behold!" he summons a sky-dominating cumulonimbus that slowly morphs into the shape of, wait for it, himself. Yes, a giant, self-portrait cloud, nude, with thunderbolt accessories. Somewhere, a muse groans. It's equal parts majestic and awkward. His cloud version does a little twirl. Lightning crackles around its crown, and a soft rain of rose water falls onto the arena. "That's not even creative," Breeza mutters. "He did the same thing during the Trojan War." Still, the crowd applauds because, well, Zeus. It's safer that way. He bows, both literally and in cloud form, before strolling off with a look of smug satisfaction that could power a small empire. One down, 14 immortals to go. And you lean back, exhale slowly, and realize you might actually enjoy this ridiculous sky theater. Clouds, gods, drama. What could possibly go wrong? You don't even have time to process Zeus's cloudy self-portrait, complete with thunderbolt abs before Hermes zips back onto the floating amphitheater. Scrolls in hand, wind-blown and over-caffeinated, delivery from Olympus dispatch. He chirps, tossing invitations into divine laps, misty hands, and somehow a chimney belonging to a mortal bakery in Thebes. One satyr catches his scroll, reads it upside down, and cheers like he just got into a Dionysian frat. Zeus, still basking in applause, announces, all invited must participate. Divine law. Subsection. Something I just made up. Refusal is treason. The crowd groans. You watch as the Olympian invitations cascade across Greece like divine spam. Athena receives hers while mid-debate with a philosopher in Corinth. She mutters, I'm already watching mortals interpret clouds as signs of doom. Do I really have to go interpret them too? Still, she packs up her owl and leaves. Poseidon gets his scroll somewhere deep under the sea. It arrives soaked and unraveling, and the sea god misreads it as a threat. He marches out of the ocean in a literal whirlpool wearing coral armor, demanding to know who insulted his honor with sky fluff. Aphrodite receives hers while reclining in a mist-scented bath. She blinks once, sighs, and says, if I must, before conjuring a team of cherubs to fluff her hair into cloud-shaped curls. Even minor deities are summoned. Boreas, the north wind, with a personality as chilly as his breath, grumbles about being pulled from hibernation. Iris, goddess of the rainbow, swoops down mid-delivery and mutters something about overtime pay. One nymph gets the scroll, reads it, and dissolves into a pile of spring flowers to avoid participating. Classic move. Historians still argue whether the invitations were magically binding or if Zeus simply had everyone too scared to say no. Either way, the turnout is suspiciously complete. And then, tucked into the corner of the floating cloud coliseum, a mortal. Yes, a mortal. His name is Thasos, a shepherd. He was just trying to get his goats to stop licking thunderstones when a scroll landed in his fire pit. He thinks it's a bill from the gods. Naturally, he panics, packs his things, and hikes up Mount Olympus to pay what he assumes is a divine fine. Somewhere between I'm sorry and please don't smite my goats. A harpy mistakes him for a contestant and ushers him into the arena with a cloud-shaped name tag. He sits next to Ares, who says nothing but cracks his knuckles threateningly. You're trying very hard not to laugh. That might get you turned into a fig. As more contestants take their seats, Zeus stands tall and announces the official lineup. There will be rounds, there will be votes, there will be clouds. It's not the most inspiring speech. Someone coughs. A muse claps politely. He hands the sacred judging scroll to Calliope, who accepts it with the enthusiasm of someone reviewing tax policy on their birthday. The rules are printed in golden ink. Each participant has 1 hour to present a moving and meaningful display of clouds, judged on form, spirit, and atmospheric style. Whatever that means. You look over at Brisa. She shrugs. He made that category up. The judging panel includes 3 muses, a retired weather god, and a lightning goat named Bolto. Yes, Bolto. Don't question it. There's an awkward pause as Dionysus tries to bribe the goat with wine-soaked olives. Bolto eats them, then burps a small cumulonimbus. The show begins in earnest. The first divine RSVP comes from Hera, Queen of Olympus and goddess of marital grudges. She strides in like she owns the atmosphere because, to be fair, she kind of does, and tosses her veil to a wind nymph who faints dramatically. She looks around the crowd and announces, "Let the clouds witness my grace." She raises her arms, and the sky quivers. Above the amphitheater, clouds begin to coil and curl into elegant shapes at first, abstract and flowing, then unmistakably forming scenes. A wedding procession, a noble queen, a thunderbolt holding groom. Only he looks mysteriously like a sheep. Zeus squints. The crowd murmurs. Historians still debate whether Hera was shading Zeus by portraying him as a fluffy sheep, or whether she simply liked the symbolism. What is clear is that the clouds respond to her like she's the sky's favorite parent. And yet, halfway through, one of the clouds forms a tiny chariot and zooms off like it's had enough. A muse jots down a note. -1 point cloud rebellion. Zeus, arms crossed, mutters, That's cheating. She bribed the Stratus with ambrosia. He's probably not wrong. There's a faint smell of vanilla and divine bribery in the air. You look back to the mortal Thasos, who is now nervously holding a stick and whispering to it, asking if clouds have feelings. They do, Thasos, and one's judging you right now. As Hera bows, a soft ripple of applause rolls through the arena. Even the thunder rumbles politely. You, meanwhile, are beginning to realize this contest won't just be ridiculous, it's going to be competitive, vengefully so, and the sky, it's watching. With Hera's performance barely finished and the clouds still forming passive-aggressive wedding veils in her honor, Zeus claps louder than necessary. It's the kind of slow, overcompensating applause someone gives when they've just been publicly outshined. Very regal, he mutters, through a smile that could curdle milk. But let's remember, everyone, this is a friendly contest. You can feel the thunder rumble not from the sky, but from his ego. Next up, a formal explanation of the contest rules, or an attempt at one. Zeus produces a shimmering scroll more sparkle than substance and unrolls it dramatically. It immediately blows away in the wind. A harpy catches it, drops it, and the rest is somewhere over Mykonos now. So, new plan. He makes the rules up on the spot. The criteria, he declares, shall be based on form, spirit, and aesthetic fluffiness. You blink, Brizza, the wind nymph next to you, mutters, he just described a marshmallow. Points will be awarded using what Zeus calls the divine vibe scale, rated from 1 to Thunderbolt. Naturally, no one knows what that means. The muses are given ceremonial golden paddles to hold up scores. One of them flips hers around and uses it as a fan. Bolto. The lightning goat bleats approvingly, then shocks a nearby cloud by accident. It puffs into the shape of a startled cat. Historians still debate whether any points were ever officially tallied. No records of a scoring system have survived, or maybe they were just erased after the goat ate them. The seating chart is another mess. Artemis is nowhere to be found. She refused the cloud-themed throne offered to her and reportedly muttered, "Nature doesn't compete." Meanwhile, Apollo lounges on a sunbeam, plucking his lyre and offering unsolicited commentary. Is there a talent round? He calls out, "Because I brought interpretive sunlight. Stick to the schedule." Zeus hisses. Even Hephaestus seems confused, holding a hammer and staring at the clouds like they owe him rent. His entry will come later. But let's just say clouds aren't a blacksmith's medium. Then come the clarifications, if you can call them that. Participants may summon, sculpt, or interpret clouds in any medium. Zeus intones, points for drama, extra points for audience tears, negative points for nudity. Calliope adds flatly, she doesn't look at Zeus, but everyone knows it's directed at him. And just when you think you understand the nonsense, Hermes Forever, the chaos intern, pipes up with, "Are we allowed to collaborate with mortals?" Hypothetically, Zeus blinks. Define collaborate. Like, hire them, or adopt one temporarily as a muse. A long pause. The lightning goat sneezes. Zeus sighs. Sure, just no necromancy this time. You file that away for later. This time is not a comforting phrase. Suddenly, a low rumble rolls across the sky. Everyone looks up. A new cloud is forming early, unauthorized, off schedule. It's shaped like a fish with legs, doing cartwheels. Poseidon has arrived. He crashes through the mist, trident in hand, soaked from forehead to toe. The cloudfish vanishes in a puff of salt. "Why am I here?" he bellows. "Who dares summon me from my bath?" Zeus gestures to the floating scoreboard, which now reads Poseidon. "TBD, you're late, brother," he says, far too calmly. Poseidon scowls. "You sent a scroll underwater. Have you met scrolls? I added waterproof ink. It was wrapped in seaweed. Premium packaging." Historians still argue whether this was petty sabotage or just divine incompetence. Either way, Poseidon is not amused. He claims a marble pedestal, slams his trident down, and tries to summon clouds. Only, nothing happens. Poseidon, being the sea god, doesn't exactly have jurisdiction over atmospheric condensation. His solution: turn seawater into mist and hope no one notices. A thick fog rolls in. It smells faintly of tuna and divine embarrassment. "You cough," the crowd murmurs. Ares gags. Poseidon stands proudly beside what is essentially glorified seafood vapor, insisting it's a conceptual piece titled The Anguish of the Tide. Aphrodite whispers to a muse, "He used that title for a seashell opera last year." A single clap comes from the mortal Thasos, who's trying very hard to be polite. One of the muses holds up her paddle sideways, unsure what score to give a fish-scented cloud. Bolto eats a piece of the mist and briefly levitates. Zeus clears his throat. Strong, effort, original medium, questionable aroma. Poseidon growls but takes a bow. The fog reluctantly slinks off like a soggy dog. And you're starting to realize that no one, not even the gods, knows what they're doing here. But they're doing it with style, petty arguments, and absolutely zero consistency. So, basically, a typical Greek myth. Poseidon's sea fog lingers like a bad decision, trailing fish-scented wisps across the amphitheater before the wind nymphs blow it away with exaggerated sighs. A muse fans herself with her judging paddle. Zeus rubs his temples. Next in the lineup is none other than Hera. Again. "Wait," you whisper to Breeza. "Didn't she already go?" "Oh, that was just her introductory showcase." Breeza says, miming air quotes with tiny gusts of wind. "This is her official round." "Of course it is." Hera steps up with the grandeur of someone arriving at their own coronation. Her dress gleams like moonlit marble, and her perfume causes 3 dryads to swoon into their drinks. She doesn't summon clouds this time. She coaxes them. A slow, swirling formation gathers above, graceful, balanced, serene. The clouds curve into a bouquet of doves in flight, their wings catching threads of a golden sunlight, while soft rainfall falls in perfect rhythm, like applause in reverse. It's majestic. It's elegant. It's infuriatingly good. Historians still debate whether Hera actually trained clouds in secret, or if the clouds themselves were simply terrified of disappointing her. Zeus narrows his eyes. He knows this level of control doesn't come naturally. You can see the realization dawn in real time. She rigged it. He leans over to Hermes. "Check the ambrosia stores." Hermes vanishes. And yet, despite the obvious manipulation, the performance works. The arena is silent. One muse wipes away a tear. Even the lightning goat lowers its head in reverence. Then comes the kicker. The clouds slowly dissolve into the unmistakable shape of a thunderbolt wrapped in wedding garlands. The crowd gasps. Zeus glares. Hera just smiles and exits the stage like she didn't just emotionally mug the king of Olympus. Breeza whispers, "That's going to cause at least 3 new myths, probably involving Zeus turning into a squirrel out of spite." The next few entries are quieter. Hephaestus tries his hand at metal-infused cloud smoke. Really? They form mechanical birds that promptly overheat and crash into the arena seating. No one is injured, but one satyr loses his popcorn. Hestia, the ever-patient goddess of the hearth, doesn't shape anything. She just summons a single, perfectly round cloud and lets it drift silently through the sky. The simplicity stuns the judges. "I'd live in that," one muse murmurs. Still, none of it quite compares to Hera's veiled thunderbolt. That is, until Apollo enters. You hear him before you see him. A gentle strumming of the lyre, growing louder as he rides in on a sunbeam, golden hair glinting like an Instagram filter. He lands, flourishes, and bows so low his forehead grazes the mist. "Esteemed judges," he says, "today I present not just a vision, but a vibration." Breeza groans. Apollo raises his lyre, and with an unnecessary number of dramatic pauses, he begins to play. The music is haunting, beautiful, and surprisingly cloudless. Everyone waits. Still nothing. Then he speaks. "The clouds are within us, in our hearts, in our regrets, in the back of our throats when we cry but pretend we're fine." "Oh, he's doing a performance piece," someone mutters. You blink at the sky. It remains stubbornly blue, not a puff in sight. Apollo continues playing. His lyrics drift into full-on slam poetry. Something about emotional vapor and the cumulonimbus of heartbreak. A muse is visibly sobbing. Another is texting someone under the table. Historians still argue whether Apollo's entry counted. There were no clouds, but there was atmosphere. Sort of. After 10 full minutes, Zeus clears his throat. "So, Your entry is an empty sky. Apollo nods solemnly. The purest form of expression, a single slow clap echoes through the arena from the mortal, Thasos, who looks oddly moved. It reminds me of when my goat left, he whispers. Zeus announces, 5 points for emotional resonance, -4 for 0 actual clouds. Apollo bows again and vanishes into a shimmer of light, muttering something about critics never understanding art. The scoreboard flickers randomly. Breeza tells you it's actually just a glamour spell to make it look like scores matter. You look up. The clouds are changing again, prepping for the next contestant. But the tension is rising. Hera's thunderbolt, Apollo's lyrical meltdown, and Poseidon's seafood fog have all shifted the stakes. And Zeus. Zeus is not amused. He retreats to his throne, thunder gathering subtly in the folds of his robe. It's no longer just a game. Now it's a storm waiting to break. A tension you can taste like licking copper hangs in the air as the amphitheater adjusts itself. Literally, you feel the floor ripple gently beneath your feet, the clouds beneath reshaping to match the mood. It's time for the next presentation. And that means Hermes. Oh boy. You'd think the god of communication, commerce, trickery, and miscellaneous divine errands would approach this contest with mischief, maybe even mockery. But Hermes walks out with the swagger of a man about to unveil the future. He's wearing aviator goggles, modern. Somehow, his sandals have tiny jet streams trailing behind them. You half expect him to pull out a pitch deck. Thank you for your attention, he says, conjuring a floating screen made entirely of stratocumulus. I'd like to introduce you all to the future of cloud interaction. Cloud's ruse. What follows is part comedy, part TED Talk, part accidental revolution. Hermes zips from cloud to cloud with the speed of a caffeinated squirrel, sculpting each into logo-ready icons. One shaped like a shopping cart, another like a screaming face with dollar signs for eyes, and one that somehow looks like it's asking for your email. Why watch clouds? He announces, when you can subscribe to them. Historians still argue whether this was satire or if Hermes genuinely tried to monetize the sky. Fringe theorists suggest this is where modern advertising began, right here, in the middle of a divine art contest. To demonstrate his business model, Hermes points to a drifting puff shaped like a goat on a skateboard. That one's already got 3,000 followers. He says, mostly dryads. The muse panel stares in stunned silence. One of them quietly whispers, I think I just got a promotional coupon in my brain. The lightning goat, Bolto, looks vaguely offended. You lean over to Breeza. Is he allowed to commercialize clouds? Honestly, she says, I think we're just seeing what happens when ADHD gets a divine budget. Hermes's finale, a massive billboard cloud that unfurls across the entire amphitheater sky. Reading, get 15% off your next cloud with code Zeus 15. Zeus blinks. Is that my name? Are you using my name for coupons? It's marketable, Hermes replies. Deadpan. The performance ends with Hermes handing out cloud samples, literally, small jars of mist with stickers that read, try me. No one knows what to do with them. Thasos, the mortal shepherd, drinks his minty, he says. Points are tallied, or not. It's unclear. A muse tries to hold up a score paddle, but it's been replaced with a subscribe now sign. No one remembers when that happened. As Hermes walks off, he hands Zeus a receipt. Zeus immediately burns it with his eyes. But the crowd, they kind of love it. A bunch of nymphs are already brainstorming cloud-based startup names. Mystify, Nimbus Prime, Cumula Nifty. Whatever this contest was supposed to be, it has now become something very different. You watch as the next cloud shifts over the arena, a slow, rolling mass like a drunken thought trying to form words. Ah, that would be Dionysus. He enters draped in vines, cheeks flushed, eyes gleaming like he's about to tell a joke he won't remember in the morning. He's barefoot, of course, carrying a goblet the size of a sheep. The goblet is sweating. Without saying a word, Dionysus gestures to the sky, and chaos begins. Clouds burst into view, wild and unruly, forming a lion. Then a grapevine, Then a lion eating a grapevine while reciting poetry. The lion pauses mid-bite to quote something that sounds suspiciously like ancient karaoke. Thunder rumbles, not in anger, but confusion. Dionysus finally speaks. This is called the Great Fermentation. A cloud forms into a human face and immediately begins weeping wine. Breeza claps once. He's not even trying. That's just his dreams leaking out. Amuse nods, then writes down unfiltered emotional rawness with 4 stars next to it. Historians still argue whether this was a cloud-based masterpiece or just one long hallucination powered by fermented ambrosia. Either way, it's spectacular. You find yourself leaning forward. Even Zeus looks a little impressed until one of the clouds morphs into a suspiciously accurate caricature of him, falling off his throne. The audience howls with laughter. Bolto, the lightning. Goat snorts sparks. Dionysus bows, takes a sip from his endless goblet, then proceeds to nap right there on the misty stage, snoring peacefully into a pillow shaped like a cow. You glance at the scoreboard. It's now displaying a wine stain in the shape of a cloud. Either that's a glitch, or Dionysus hacked it. And suddenly, things feel less like a contest and more like a fever dream powered by divine egos, artistic one-upmanship, and at least one ancient marketing scheme. Next up, Artemis. And from the silence behind the scenes, you can already tell she's not going to play along. The laughter from Dionysus's Cloud Lion performance still hangs in the air like incense, drifting lazily across the amphitheater. A dryad passes out, giggling. Bolto. The lightning goat tries to eat a wine-soaked cloud and short circuits for a full 10 seconds. But now, it's Artemis's turn. And the temperature drops not dramatically, but enough that your skin prickles. Even Breeza, usually unbothered, adjusts her cloud cushion and leans forward. Artemis doesn't enter with fanfare. No flying chariots, no sunbeams. She appears as if she's always been standing there. Tall, still, and draped in silver-tinted shadows. Bill slung across her shoulder like punctuation. She does not look at the crowd. She looks only at the sky. Zeus clears his throat. Lady Artemis, your album. Russian. She does not answer. Instead, she steps forward, places one hand on the marble railing of the amphitheater, and raises her gaze to the horizon. The wind stills, even the ambient harp music, courtesy of Apollo's enchanted cloud radio, cuts out. And then, one cloud begins to move, slowly, deliberately. A thin ribbon of mist stretches across the sky, winding like a river. It doesn't swirl or twist or do any of the elaborate poses the previous contestants forced upon their clouds. No, this one glides like a deer slipping through a forest at dawn. It changes shape with aching subtlety, never flashy, never announcing itself. You begin to see forms within it, a quiet glade, a full moon, the curve of an antler, and then nothing. Just mist again. The entire performance lasts maybe 3 minutes. When it ends, Artemis lowers her hand, turns around, and leaves without a word. The silence that follows is louder than any applause. You glance over at the judging panel. The muses are frozen mid-sip. One of them mutters, "I don't know what that was, but I feel like I need to go journal about it." Even Hermes looks stunned. He's already drawing mock-up sketches for a Silent Sky TM meditation app. Zeus breaks the silence with a slow clap. "Mysterious," he says, trying not to sound rattled. "Very understated." Historians still debate whether this was an act of protest or just pure aesthetic defiance. Fringe scholars claim Artemis was making a statement about how beauty doesn't need validation, though one scroll describes her afterward muttering, "Idiots. Clouds don't compete." Meanwhile, you glance at Thesos, the mortal shepherd. He's squinting at the sky. "Was that a rabbit?" He whispers to no one in particular. "No, Thasos. It was your soul." Briefly visible, as the arena slowly regains its rhythm, Demeter stands and clears her throat in the very specific way that lets you know someone's about to file a divine complaint. She walks onto the platform holding a scroll, a literal scroll. It's long. It unrolls behind her like a train. Before I begin, she says, I must formally state my concern that this contest is disrupting seasonal wind patterns and obscuring solar distribution essential to late summer grain cycles. Ares groans audibly. Hermes turns his cloud sample into a stress ball. Demeter continues, unfazed. I also believe Hera's second-round display manipulated precipitation schedules, which has impacted barley germination. Zeus tries to cut in. Demeter, dear sister. She raises a hand. I brought data. A glowing tablet of wheat appears mid-air, projecting graphs made of vines and pollen. Here, she says, tapping it, is a cloud that delayed pollination in Thessaly, and this, she scrolls left, was a cumulus outbreak that caused premature corn enthusiasm in Corinth. You somehow understand what she means, and you're horrified. Historians still argue whether Demeter was using real data or simply flexing with divine agricultural spreadsheets. Either way, it was deeply effective. Finally, Zeus sighs. Would you like to perform your entry now? Demeter closes her tablet and nods. Raising both arms, she summons a storm front not violent, but weighty, like an exhale from the earth itself. From this mass of swirling, fertile gray, emerge gentle rain clouds that fall in rows like furrows in soil. Each one drops mist where imaginary crops grow. Wheat, oats, barley. Then the clouds part, revealing a radiant arc of golden sunshine through a tunnel of green mist. A single stalk of cloud wheat rises from the center, glowing with dew. It is both strangely moving and deeply agricultural. The crowd claps politely, except for Dionysus, who's still napping. Zeus leans toward Hermes and mutters, that had way too much chlorophyll, but even he can't deny it. Demeter brought order, calm, and just enough guilt to make it look like she wasn't showing off. As she exits, she hands Zeus a follow-up petition titled Cloud Usage and Equinox Fairness, a modest proposal. It's 15 pages long. You sigh deeply, because now, with all the gods having had their say, there's one contestant left in today's lineup, Thasos, the mortal, who is still holding a stick and petting it like it might help. You can feel it. This quiet tension that's somehow louder than thunder. All the gods have had their turn. Some dazzled, some confused. Some tried to trademark clouds. But now, the amphitheater grows still for the final contestant of the round. And it's Thasos, a mortal. He stands. When called, though it's less of a confident stride and more of a stutter-step panic shuffle, he clutches his crooked shepherd's staff like it's a divine relic. It is not. Everyone watches, even Ares, who had been openly sharpening a spear into a cloud. Even Bolto the lightning goat stops chewing. Thasos clears his throat. Hi, Briza sighs. This is going to be brutal. You think so too? Until he looks up, really looks up, and something strange happens. He doesn't summon a storm. He doesn't sculpt the clouds. He doesn't chant or invoke or dance or pull out a business plan. He just starts talking, not to the gods, to the sky. I'm not sure what I'm doing, he says, scratching his head. But where I come from, we watch clouds when we miss someone. A whisper stirs through the crowd. So I guess this is for my sister. She passed last winter, but she always said clouds were just the gods looking down. So I figured, maybe she's up there. Maybe she can see this. His voice is small, awkward, cracking in places, but it's real. Then he lifts his staff, points it skyward, and without magic, without theatrics, he traces a line in the air. As if on cue, a cloud rolls in. It's clumsy, lopsided, patchy, like a blanket with holes. But if you squint, really squint, it looks vaguely like a goat. Sorry, Thasos adds. She liked goats. Silence, and then applause, scattered at first, then steady, not thunderous, just enough to say, we saw you. One of the muses wipes at her eye and mutters, it's the sincerity. Gets me every time. Even Bolto bleats with approval, then accidentally sparks his own cloud into a heart shape. Historians still debate whether Thasos actually summoned the cloud, or whether the sky simply gave him one out of pity, or maybe, just maybe, out of respect. Because something about that moment lingers. Not the skill, not the spectacle, just the feeling. Zeus looks genuinely confused. Did Did he just beat several gods? Calliope shrugs. He beat Apollo, for sure. In the back, Hermes is already trying to recruit Thasos for a cloud influencer campaign. Rustic authenticity. He says, people love that. Thasos bows awkwardly, trips a little, and walks off stage glowing not with divine power, but with that quiet dignity mortals have when they do something brave without realizing it was brave. Breeza nudges you. I still think his goat looked like a melting shoe, but okay. Emotional resonance. 10 out of 10. You're still processing when the amphitheater begins to shift again. The clouds above swirl, but this time, no one is calling them. The wind picks up, gently, but independently. And then it hits you. Zeus has lost control, not of the crowd, of the sky, because as the gods argue quietly about scoring and favorites, the clouds themselves are beginning to form shapes that no one called for. A thundercloud shaped like a wagging finger, a cirrus forming a shrug, a small cumulonimbus spelling out the word meh. Breeza gasps. Oh no! You turn to her. What's happening? She gulps. The clouds. They're judging us. The clouds above are no longer waiting for commands. They're moving of their own accord now, slow, deliberate, and just a little bit smug. You can feel it in the air. This shifting mood. It's like when a cat decides it no longer wants to be held and you realize, far too late, that you were never the one in control. At first, it's subtle. A halo-shaped cloud floats just behind Hera's head and quietly turns into a question mark. Another drifts above Zeus's throne, morphs into a crown, and then immediately wilts like overcooked lettuce. Breeza whispers, they're revolting. Softly, you blink. The clouds. She nods. Yeah, we always thought they were passive. Turns out they've just been biding their time. Somewhere nearby, a muse gasps as her judging paddle turns to mist in her hands. The paddle reforms midair into a very detailed, very dramatic thumbs-down emoji. The clouds have opinions now. One particularly bold nimbostratus forms a series of portraits mid-sky. Zeus in a toga made of fog. Apollo with a very exaggerated chin. Hermes tripping over a branding deal. Okay, Zeus mutters, standing. That's enough. He raises his hand to call down lightning, his signature move. You've seen this before. It usually ends in scorched earth or divine declarations. But nothing happens. The lightning doesn't answer. You can feel the sky ignoring him. Historians still argue whether this was a celestial strike or a divine software crash. Regardless, one fact is clear. Zeus is no longer driving the storm. Another cloud floats by carrying the words, nice try, etched in vapor. He tries again. Nothing. And then, high above the amphitheater, the clouds begin forming a shape together, massive, deliberate, layered. It's a face, not human, not divine, something abstract, something atmospheric. It's every wind current, every storm front, every lazy morning fog coalescing into expression. And the expression is disapproval. Zeus lowers his hand. A dryad faints. Dionysus, waking from his wine nap, looks up, squints at the face, and says, I think the sky is ghosting us. You want to laugh, but honestly, he might be right. Below, the gods begin murmuring nervously. What does it mean? Are we being reviewed? Is this weather cancel culture? One cloud slinks across the arena, forming a pair of crossed arms. Another does a slow, dramatic eye roll. You're witnessing something new, something no myth ever recorded. The clouds are staging a polite, passive-aggressive uprising. They're not destroying anything. They're just refusing. No more summoned forms. No more divine requests. They hover above the gods like exhausted stagehands at the end of a too-long play, silently demanding better direction or an end to the show altogether. Calliope tries to regain control. All right, let's tally the scores. Her judging scroll turns into fog in her hands. Even Bolto, the lightning goat, looks confused. He bleats uncertainly, then floats up 6 feet off the ground and gently rotates. You okay, buddy? A muse asks. Bolto blinks slowly, then emits a static sigh. The amphitheater is silent now, tense, and that's when Hera stands up. Not with anger, not with performance, just calm acceptance. I warned you, husband, she says, facing Zeus. Even the sky gets tired of being told what to be. Zeus doesn't respond. She turns to the clouds, bows slightly, and steps back. You glance at Thasos. He's sitting cross-legged near a puddle of goat-shaped mist, humming to himself and chewing what appears to be cloud-flavored trail mix. He looks perfectly at peace. Breeza nudges you. Mortals are weirdly good at handling divine meltdowns. You nod, maybe because they've seen enough of them. Then, slowly, with the confidence of a kingdom that knows its worth, the clouds begin to float away. Not quickly, not dramatically, just decisively. They drift toward the horizon, shapeless and free. One of them, just before vanishing, forms a tiny banner in the sky. We'll call you. A collective chill runs through the gods. Even Ares shifts in his seat. Zeus sits down. For the first time in millennia, he looks genuinely small. You've seen storms before. You've even seen gods storm. But you've never seen the weather itself walk off the job. The arena, once so full of thunderous pride and fluff-based vanity, now floats in silence. A single cumulus lingers behind. It hovers gently, softly, then reshapes into a smile kind, knowing, final. And with that, the sky clears, not as a reward, as a warning. The sky is too clean now, not just clear, suspiciously clear, the kind of unsettling blue that feels like it's watching you back. No clouds, no birds, not even a lazy breeze to keep things moving. Just stillness, polite, eerie stillness. You can hear sandals shifting, gods murmuring. Somewhere, a muse drops her wine glass and doesn't bother to pick it up. Zeus is slumped in his throne like someone just unplugged him. He's staring upward as though trying to summon an explanation or at least a small, forgiving puff of mist. But the clouds are gone. Breeza sighs. It's the ultimate power move. Absence. You nod. Still unsure if this is brilliant or terrifying. Probably both. Zeus stands slowly, like he's aged 1,000 mortal years in 10 minutes and addresses the gods in a tone he hasn't used since that unfortunate let's make humans out of clay phase. Well, he begins. Perhaps we paused the contest. The word pause hangs in the air like someone suggested canceling summer. Hera raises an eyebrow. You mean surrender? I mean, Zeus says tightly, take a strategic intermission while we reassess the judging criteria. Apollo, who has not stopped playing soft background notes since his performance flopped, mutters. Sounds like cloud defeat. I will not be mocked by moisture. Zeus snaps, but he's not fooling anyone. The gods saw it. The mortals saw it. Even Bolto, the lightning goat, gently chewing on the remains of a paper paddle, saw it. The clouds quit. And that hurts. You can almost hear the headlines. Sky quits Zeus. Weather union strikes for better conditions. Historians still argue whether this moment marked the first recorded cosmic protest. Some say it was a metaphor. Others claim it was divine entropy. A few fringe theorists insist the clouds had been sentient all along, and this was merely their long-delayed exit interview. Meanwhile, Artemis reappears at the edge of the arena. As silently as she left, she folds her arms and stares at the blank sky. Told you they'd walk? She says. Nobody replies. Not even Hera, who's trying very hard not to look triumphant. And then, in the very center of the amphitheater, the marble beneath your feet begins to crackle lightly at first, like thin ice on a warm day. Everyone freezes. A new shape begins to form in the sky. Not a cloud, not weather. A question mark. Huge, floating high above the arena, drawn in trailing wind, but it's not Zeus's work. You can feel it. The clouds are testing them now, waiting to see what the gods will do when their canvas becomes the critic. Hermes squints up at the symbol and mutters, okay, this is starting to feel like brand damage. Then, from somewhere near the back of the arena, a voice says, maybe we let someone else try. All heads turn. It's Thasos, still sitting cross-legged, still chewing on something uncertain. He's got a look on his face like someone who just remembered a dream and isn't sure whether it was good or dangerous. What did you say? Asks Zeus. Thasos stands up slowly. I mean, I'm not a god, But maybe the sky is not looking for gods right now. Maybe it just wants to be seen. A hush falls. He walks to the center of the arena, looks up at that looming question mark in the sky, and raises his staff not in command, but in curiosity. You brace for lightning, but instead, the air softens. The sky twitches. A single, small cloud reappears. It's wobbly, definitely not majestic, kind of shaped like a potato. Thassos smiles. That's more like it. Historians will never agree whether that cloud was a message, a peace offering, or just cosmic indigestion. But at that moment, every divine eye in the amphitheater watches that weird little puff float across the blue like it owns the place. Apollo strums a major chord. Hermes pulls out a cloud app prototype and quietly deletes it. Zeus doesn't speak. He just nods slowly and sits down with a weight that says he knows when the narrative has shifted. And it's not in his favor. You look at Breeza. She's smiling faintly. The clouds, she says, just unfollowed Olympus. And for once, the gods have no idea how to get them back. The amphitheater hangs in a strange limbo. Now half cloudless sky, half collective identity crisis. You can feel the discomfort wafting through the divine seating, like smoke at a vegan potluck. Nobody talks. Nobody claps. Even Dionysus has paused mid-sip, staring at the potato-shaped cloud like it might bite him. Thassos is still standing in the center, one hand resting gently on his shepherd's staff. His posture says lost tourist, but the sky above him says something else entirely. Trust. Zeus exhales long, dramatic, and thunder-free. Well, he mutters, this is unprecedented. Breeza, ever the wind nymph of dry commentary, adds, so was the goat-shaped coupon code. But here we are. Zeus almost smiles. Almost. The potato cloud is now drifting lazily above Thassos' head, trailing what looks like a lazy exclamation mark behind it. It's cute, not majestic, not powerful, just friendly, relatable. Even somewhere in the stands, a muse whispers, I think it likes him. Demeter frowns. Do we have documentation on what happens if clouds pick a mortal? Athena appears in a shimmering wisp of logic and silver armor, flipping through a glowing scroll. Closest match. Sisyphus. But that involved boulders, not meteorology. Hermes pipes up. Honestly, this might be the healthiest relationship we've ever had with sky patterns. Artemis steps forward, arms folded, eyes narrowed. What does the mortal want? She asks plainly. Thassos, blinking at being addressed by a moon goddess, fumbles. Want? I don't know. A nap. Maybe a sandwich. Apollo claps slowly. Finally, a contestant with clarity. You glance at Zeus. He's squinting at Thassos, as if trying to locate the trick. But there isn't one. There never was. That's the point. It's not the goat cloud, the thunder sculptures, the corporate mist branding. It's that. For the first time in divine history, someone showed up with no agenda, no ego, and the sky liked it. Historians still debate the significance of what happened next, because the clouds return, not with a crash or a chorus or some apocalyptic hurricane, just one at a time. A small one here, a slow swirl there. Puffy, uneven, real, like they're testing the waters. But more importantly, making the decision for themselves. They begin drifting across the sky again, not summoned, not sculpted, just existing. Hera gasps. They're choosing their own formations. A high cumulus floats by in the shape of a shrug. Poseidon raises a soggy eyebrow. That one looks like Zeus. Another cloud floats behind it and gives the Zeus-shaped one bunny ears. Laughter ripples through the amphitheater light, unforced. For the first time all day, you feel the divine crowd relax. Even Bolto the lightning goat lies down and lets out a little cloud-poofed sigh. Calliope, ever the documentarian, rises from her judging seat, scroll in hand. I propose we record this event not as a failure, nor as a contest, but as a transition. Zeus raises an eyebrow. Transition to what? Calliope smiles. To listening. You watch Zeus open his mouth to argue, but something in his eyes changes. A flicker of vulnerability, maybe even relief. After all, even gods get tired of holding the steering wheel forever. I suppose, he says, there's a certain poetry in being ignored by your own sky. Hera leans in, smirking. Now you know how I felt during our first 3 centuries of marriage. The audience chuckles, gently, warmly. And for a moment, Olympus feels less like a divine hierarchy and more like a group therapy circle with atmospheric mood lighting. The clouds continue their silent march. They aren't obeying. They aren't rebelling. They're simply being. It's chaos in the most peaceful way possible. Thesos, meanwhile, has sat down again. He's scratching Bolto behind the ears and offering him a piece of cloud-salted bread. You're pretty sure that's not a real snack. But Bolto seems happy. The gods begin to disperse. Quietly, respectfully, Demeter consults her calendar miss. Athena is now drafting a philosophical essay titled When the Heavens Develop Boundaries, on the autonomy of weather. Hermes is selling commemorative potato cloud mugs out of a mobile cloud cart. They're selling fast. Even Zeus rises, dusts off his robe, and approaches Thasos. "You mortal," he says. "What are you called?" "Thasos," the shepherd says. From the low hills, Zeus pauses, then offers a nod. "Your cloud has spirit." Thasos blinks. "Thanks. It's based on a goat I used to know." Zeus doesn't laugh, but he doesn't smite him either, which, frankly, might be the highest compliment possible. The cloudscape above Mount Olympus no longer looks curated. It looks real, which is a bit unsettling for a place that prides itself on being the curated feed of the divine world. Gone are the towering cumulus self-portraits and the perfectly symmetrical storm halos. In their place, a sky full of humble, meandering puffballs doing exactly what they want and answering to no one. You can feel the gods struggling with it. They're used to being obeyed, not observed. And yet, no one protests, not out loud. Even Ares, who you'd expect to grumble about weak cloud morale, simply tosses a cloud-punching gauntlet over his shoulder and lets it disappear into the mist. Aphrodite takes a long look at a drifting heart-shaped cloud and says, "You know, they used to flirt back. Now I just feel ghosted." Zeus stands off to the side, arms behind his back, doing that thing powerful men do when they realize they may not be the main character anymore. He watches the clouds, really watches them like someone watching a lover pack their bags, knowing better than to stop them. And across from him, Thasos, humble shepherd, goat enthusiast, accidental prophet of weather autonomy, is casually feeding Bolto what appears to be a bread crust shaped like a rain puddle. Bolto looks happier than any divine goat has a right to be. Breeza leans in. "You know what's wild?" "What?" You whisper. "This mortal." She gestures toward Thasos. "Did more with one potato-shaped cloud than a dozen gods could do with millennia of thunder." You blink. "So, is he the winner?" "Depends." She shrugs. "Are we still pretending this was a contest?" Overhead, the clouds form a series of question marks. Then, after a moment, a single LOL spelled in mist. The muses decide to hold an emergency judging session anyway, not because they think it matters, but because they're legally obligated to complete narrative arcs. Calliope clears her throat and reads from a scroll that's now half dissolved with poetic condensation. In light of recent developments, she begins. "We, the panel, recognize that formal judging has been rendered. How do we say irrelevant?" One muse mutters, "Extinct." Another says, "Cancelled." A third just hiccups and says, "Dionysus." Calliope continues. "However, by unanimous murmuring, we wish to acknowledge an entry that exemplified." She pauses to squint at her notes. "Authentic cloud resonance, emotional moisture, and interpretive sincerity." Thasos looks up mid-goat petting. "Wait, is that me?" The amphitheater gives him a modest, scattered round of applause. Nothing thunderous, just warm. Zeus, watching it all, mutters to no one in particular. "There was a time when applause shook the mountains," to which Artemis replies, without even looking at him, "There was also a time when you tried to seduce a cloud." He has no rebuttal. As the unofficial, unscored, unendorsed winner, Thasos receives no crown, no scepter, no divine title. Instead, a single cloud descends small, perfectly ordinary, and hovers over his head like a loyal, squishy hat. It begins to rain. Just a bit, just on him. Thasos beams. "Oh, it's like home." The gods seem okay with this, maybe not thrilled, but no one turns him into a tree, which, in Olympus, is how you measure respect. And in a surprising twist of celestial sentimentality, several gods start quietly copying him. Hestia summons a humble campfire cloud. Apollo releases one shaped like a tuning fork that promptly breaks itself in half. Even Poseidon, grumbling about dignity, sends up a small cloud shaped like a mackerel. It explodes with a wet pop. But still, it's the thought that counts. Historians still argue whether this moment marked a shift in the divine-mortal dynamic. Fringe scholars believe it inspired the concept of vibes-based weather. You just know that from this point on, every myth involving clouds gets at least 30% more introspective. The amphitheater begins to dissolve around you. Not collapse, just fade. The gods don't need it anymore. The contest is over. The clouds have made that very clear. One last puff floats across the sky. It's shaped like a ribbon, then a broom, then nothing. The sky goes blank again. Not empty, just free. The floating amphitheater, once a roaring arena of divine pageantry and thunderous one-upmanship, now resembles an after-party at a wedding where no one caught the bouquet and everyone's just kind of slowly realizing it's time to go home. The clouds, as if pulling off a silent Irish exit, have mostly slipped away toward the horizon. What's left is a cool breeze and the faint scent of static. Zeus is still perched on his throne, but now he looks less like a king and more like a guy quietly accepting that his favorite band has broken up. Across from him, Thasos is trying to pack up the last crumbs of his makeshift goat picnic. Bolto follows him like a chubby storm cloud on legs, bleating softly and sniffing every satyr that passes. Brisa drifts beside you and murmurs, "Do you feel it too?" You nod. "The shift," she sighs, like the skies decided it doesn't need a director anymore. Just a good listener. Historians still debate what happened next, if anything happened at all. Some say it was a vision. Others claim it was indigestion caused by atmospheric ambrosia. But in that moment, above the slowly dissolving marble floor of the arena, a final cloud appears. It's not shaped like a goat, or a thunderbolt, or even Zeus's disappointed face. It's shaped like a door. Simple, rectangular, with a soft curve near the top, and it floats gently before beginning to open. No wind, no sparkle, just a door slowly opening into more sky. Everyone freezes. Hera's eyes narrow. "That's new?" Artemis tilts her head. "A symbol." "No," whispers Athena, stepping forward, scroll glowing in her palm. "An invitation." "To what?" asks Demeter. "A new realm." "No," Athena says again. "A new relationship." And as if to underscore that terrifyingly vague concept, a single thread of cloud-thin, deliberate spools out of the doorway and floats down. It doesn't reach Zeus, or any god. It reaches Thasos, wraps gently around his staff like a ribbon tied by a friend you haven't seen in years. You watch as the mortal stares up at the sky, blinking, unsure. "Am I supposed to go somewhere?" "No," Hermes says, his tone unusually sincere. "Just keep watching." And Thasos does. He doesn't summon, doesn't command, he just watches, and the thread dissolves. The cloud door folds back into the sky, disappears into pale blue. No ceremony, no drama, just a message whispered in vapor. Pay attention, or don't. We're not waiting anymore. One muse finally speaks, softly. "I think we've been replaced as the audience." Brisa stretches her arms overhead and yawns. "Honestly, the clouds deserve it. You know how long they've been performing for us." "How long?" you ask. She shrugs. "Since before gods had names." A long pause follows. The kind of silence that isn't heavy, it's clean, fresh. The kind that comes right before a rainstorm or a revelation. Then, as casually as if nothing had happened, Zeus claps his hands. "Well, let's pretend this was all part of the plan." Artemis snorts. Hermes hands him a fake award labeled Best Sky-Based Contest Host. By default, he accepts it with a dramatic bow and says, "We'll reconvene next century. Maybe a wind-stacking tournament." Dionysus cheers from somewhere inside a misty barrel. "Only if goats can compete." Bolto bleats in triumph and electrocutes a decorative pillar. You glance skyward one last time. A tiny cloud floats overhead. Just a puff. No symbolism. No flair. And somehow it's source. Sompus. Cas. That's perfect. The contest is over, but the sky has only just begun. You'd think the gods would disperse in a thunderclap or some spectacular flash of ego, but instead, they drift away like theatergoers after a matinee that ended in unexpected tears. No one talks much, not because they're embarrassed, but because, in their own stubborn way, they're processing what just happened. They hosted a contest. They were the contestants, and somehow they lost to weather. Demeter heads off mumbling about crop cloud cycles. Apollo sulks his way into a patch of filtered light, writing a tragic poem titled Son of the Sun, outshone by vapor. Even Ares, who never likes anything unless it's on fire, mutters, "Respect," as he watches a cirrus curl into a spiraling gust above the mountains. But Zeus lingers. He walks across what remains of the mist marble amphitheater, hands clasped behind his back, head tilted skyward, not judging, not scowling, just thinking. He stops beside Thesos, who's leaning against a puddle-shaped rock, feeding Boltos small cloudberries he absolutely should not have access to. The mortal looks up, clearly unsure whether to bow, kneel, or offer cheese. Zeus does none of the things Thasos probably expected. Instead, he clears his throat. "You know," he says slowly, "I created the clouds, shaped them, named them, commanded them. Thasos choose." "Cool." Zeus pauses, then nods. "Yes, cool." There's something oddly soothing about the exchange, like a general giving a sheep herder an overdue medal for showing up to the wrong battlefield and somehow winning the war by napping in the grass. Above, the clouds drift like they always have, except now, it's with intent. They aren't shaped. They shape themselves, and the gods know it. Historians still argue whether this was a divine de-escalation or the first peaceful weather negotiation. Some say it was an allegory for ancient power structures, giving way to decentralized wisdom. Others just think it was about goats. Brisa appears beside you again, lounging on a leftover vapor bench. "You know what this reminds me of," she says. "You wait." She grins. "That one time Zeus tried to get the stars to spell his name and accidentally triggered a comet storm." You laugh, quietly. Because it's true, and also because you get it now. Control is an illusion with good PR. And weather doesn't care about PR. You look over at the divine scoreboard, what remains of it. Most of the letters have blown away. One word is still visible, etched in soft mist. Maybe. It's not a win. It's not a loss. It's not even an answer. It's an invitation. The gods begin to leave for real now, drifting down to earth, back to temples, to altars, to wherever immortals go when they realize their subjects don't need fanfare to pay attention. One muse whispers to another, "Next time, maybe a sunbeam sculpture contest." "No clouds," her sister replies. "No judgment." Artemis gives a subtle nod. "Now that's art." You and Brisa remain behind as the final divine sparkles dissolve. The air is quiet. The sky is soft again, no longer performing, just existing. And floating above the empty space where gods once competed is one last cloud. Not dramatic, not symbolic, just present. Thasos walks up beside it, raises a hand, and gives a small, grateful wave. The cloud doesn't wave back, but it doesn't leave either, which, in sky language, is probably the same thing. There's a strange beauty in watching gods leave quietly. You'd think they'd storm off, scorch a tree, transform into peacocks out of spite, but no, they simply drift like mist from a tea kettle. Like stories at the end of a campfire night. No one announces an ending. Because how do you end a contest the sky refused to finish? Brisa's still beside you, ankles crossed, mist halo softly glowing. She stretches like someone who's been holding a sigh for 300 years. Feels different, doesn't it? You nod. The air. No, she says, waving a hand. The rules. Up above, clouds roll on freer now. They don't seem angry, just relieved. Like theater performers finally allowed to improvise after eons of reciting divine scripts. You spot one shaped like a teacup slowly morphing into a snail. It makes no sense. It's perfect. Zeus remains in the distance, speaking with Hera in quiet tones. They're not arguing, which is already a miracle. Hera's veil flutters in the wind, and you could swear a nearby cloud briefly takes the shape of a sly smirk. Think they'll change? You ask. Brisa smirks. No, but they might try pretending for a few centuries. And yet, You can't shake the feeling that something has changed. It's not in the gods. It's in the gaze. Mortals, you realize, will no longer look up at the sky and ask, what do the gods want? They'll ask, what do the clouds remember? And that's bigger than myth. It's movement. A soft rustle nearby draws your attention. Thasos is gathering his things. A worn blanket, a half-eaten roll, a stick. He insists is lucky. Bolto follows, tail wagging like a storm about to break into a nap. You walk over. He looks up and smiles. Think I'll head back now. The goats'll miss me. You chuckle. You realize you just changed the trajectory of divine meteorology, right? He shrugs. I just talked to a cloud. He pauses and fed a goat some bread shaped like a breeze. Any plans for tomorrow? You ask. Nap, he says instantly. Might stare at a puddle. Maybe draw a smiley face in the dirt if I get ambitious. And that, right there, feels like the most sacred offering Olympus has ever received. Historians will try to make Thasos into something grand, a prophet, a cloud whisperer, a man who redefined divine protocol. But the truth, he was just a guy who watched, and in doing so, reminded the gods they didn't invent wonder, they just rented it. As he walks away, Bolto trailing like a loyal weather balloon, the clouds form a loose, lopsided trail behind him. It's not ceremonial, it's not theatrical, it's just quiet appreciation. And then, from the east, a new wind arrives, gentle, unrushed, carrying not prophecy, but possibility. Somewhere in the high blue sky, a single cirrus begins writing something that isn't a message, just a rhythm. An atmospheric whisper that says, we're done performing, now you watch us for real. And you do, because how could you not? And so it ends not with a bang, not with lightning, but with silence. A kind of silence that doesn't ask for applause, just space. The floating amphitheater is gone now, its misty columns dissolved, its velvet cloud seats folded back into sky. No trumpets, no grand finale, just a hollow breeze whistling softly where gods once judged fluff. You're the last one still standing at the edge, peering out into that open blue. Briza's gone. The muses have returned to their libraries. Even Hermes has zipped off to pitch a business plan to a passing flock of geese. All that's left above is an empty sky. Except it's not really empty. It's full, not of shapes, but of choice. And for the first time in divine history, that choice belongs to the clouds. They come and go now, unbothered. Formless if they wish, funny if they feel like it. Today, a soft rectangle wobbling like a jelly bean. Tomorrow, a horizon streak. No meaning, no metaphor, just motion. You lean back and lie on your own personal puff of leftover cloud thin, quiet, cooperative. It doesn't ask anything of you. It just holds. Down below, you can barely see Thasos making his way down the slope. A dot beside an even smaller dot that is Bolto, bouncing like a storm on legs. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of a goat bleating echoes like a punctuation mark on the sky's last sentence. You close your eyes, and then faint. Faint as breath, you feel it. A drop of rain on your cheek. It's not cold, not mournful, just there, like punctuation from above. Or maybe applause. The clouds are watching now, and they've decided they'll let you watch too, but on their terms. No thunder, no contests, just clouds being clouds. And maybe that's the most divine act of all. So now, here you are floating somewhere between myth and mist, nestled in a place the gods accidentally built and the clouds graciously reclaimed. Breathe. Let your chest rise slowly, as the sky drapes itself across your thoughts, no longer sculpted, no longer judged, just drifting, as it always wanted to. You might still hear the faint whisper of sandals over marble, a soft giggle from a muse lingering in memory, the gentle thud of a lightning goat snoring into a storm cloud pillow. Let them fade. Let it all soften, because none of it needs to be sharp anymore. The sky is quiet now. You're not being watched, not measured, not expected to clap. You're just here, and above you, a slow swirl of vapor that looks a little like a sheep, a little like a spilled dream, a little like nothing at all, exactly as it should be. Let your eyes close. Let your thoughts drift like morning fog across a lazy meadow. There's nothing left to prove, nothing left to summon. The gods have gone home, and the clouds, they're finally asleep. Just like you.